If a behavioral scientist had been observing your home for the last 7 days, not your dog, here is what their report would say. Tuesday. Owner raised voice in response to garbage can incident. Dog showed immediate stress posturing, ears flat, body lowered, tail tucked. Owner interpreted response as guilt. It was fear. Owner did not notice the difference. Thursday. 22-minute walk. Owner looked at phone for 18 of those minutes. Dog checked back over their shoulder 11 times. No eye contact return. Dog stopped checking back by minute 14. Saturday. Dog greeted owner at the door with full body wag. Owner said, "Not now," pushed dog down and walked to the kitchen. Dog sat in the hallway for 4 minutes. Did not approach again that evening. These are not rare events. They are Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday in millions of homes across the world. And the dogs in those homes are not angry. They are not dramatic. They do not hold press conferences about how they have been wrong. They just quietly adjust. That adjustment, the gradual dimming of the tail wag, the disappearing eye contact, the silence at the door, that is the bond you did not know you were breaking. Today we are going to examine 10 specific behaviors grouped by the biological mechanisms they disrupt. Not to make you feel guilty, to give you the information you needed the day they came home. Correct relaxation. Your dog knocked over the garbage can. You have told them 100 times, so you raise your voice, sharp, loud, frustrated, and it works. They slink away, ears flat, body low. You interpret this as understanding. It is not. Here is what is actually happening inside your dog's brain in the 3 seconds after you shout. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, fires before any other region processes the event. This is not a behavioral choice. It is a neurological reflex, hardwired through millions of years of predator avoidance. Loud sudden sound equals danger. The prefrontal cortex, which governs learning and reasoning, goes offline within seconds of an amygdala activation. Cortisol and adrenaline flood the body. Heart rate and respiratory rate spike. What this means practically, the moment you raise your voice in anger, your dog's ability to learn from that moment shuts off completely. Their entire neurological system is focused on one question only. Am I safe? The lowered head, the tucked tail, the slink across the room, these are not displays of understanding. They are appeasement signals. Behavioral scientists are specific about this distinction. Appeasement is not comprehension. It is a social anxiety response designed to reduce the threat posed by a dominant individual. Your dog is not saying, "I know what I did wrong, and I will not do it again." They are saying, "Please stop. I am not a threat to your..." Research on canine learning and aversive stimuli consistently shows that dogs trained using voice-raised corrections develop higher baseline cortisol levels over time. They become hypervigilant to their owner's emotional tone. They spend more cognitive energy monitoring your mood and less on genuine environmental engagement. The wagging tail does not disappear overnight. It dims millimeter by millimeter, interaction by interaction, until the dog is obeying not because they trust you, but because unpredictability is too stressful to risk. Now compound this with the temporal problem. You come home from work, the kitchen is destroyed. You call your dog's name with an edge in your voice, and they come over head low looking guilty. You deliver a correction. Case closed. Except the act that destroyed your kitchen happened 4 hours ago. Canine working memory for event-specific associations operates within a window of approximately 30 to 90 seconds. Beyond that threshold, your dog cannot connect your current emotional state to a past behavior. The guilty expression you are interpreting as evidence of understanding is not guilty. Behavioral research has consistently shown that the guilty look in dogs is a response to owner body language and vocal tone, not a demonstration of recalled wrongdoing. When you punish beyond that window, your dog experiences one thing: the person they depend on has become hostile for reasons they cannot identify. From their perspective, you are randomly unpredictable. And dogs subjected to chronic, unpredictable negative emotional stimuli from their primary attachment figure develop generalized anxiety, a state that bleeds into every part of their life, not because they did something wrong, because they live with someone whose emotional responses make no causal sense to their brain. Walks are not exercise for your dog. They are the primary social, cognitive, and sensory event of an animal's day. Your dog's nose contains approximately 300 million olfactory receptors. Yours contains 6 million. The region of your dog's brain devoted to processing scent is proportionally 40 times larger than the equivalent region in yours. When your dog stops at a fire hydrant or a patch of grass, they are not wasting time. They are reading a layered social document, which animals pass through when their emotional state, their health, whether they were in distress. Olfactory exploration of this kind is cognitively demanding and emotionally satisfying in a way that has no human equivalent. But here is the element that most research overlooks. Your dog is not just processing the external environment on a walk. They are doing it with you. Studies on canine social engagement during outdoor activity show that bonded dogs show measurably higher oxytocin levels during walks when their owner is verbally engaged and visually attentive, compared to walks where the owner is distracted. The walk is not merely a physical event. For a social species that co-evolved specifically with humans, the walk is a shared experience. Your dog's enrichment during that time is directly tied to your participation in it. When you stare at a screen for 18 of 22 minutes, your dog looks back at you 11 times. We know this because researchers tracking gaze behavior during walks have documented exactly this pattern. And we know that by the walk's midpoint, dogs whose owners are disengaged stop looking back. They are not sulking, they are adapting. They are learning that looking for you yields nothing, so they stop looking. Every version of that lesson, looking for you yields nothing, compounds. It restructures the social map of their world, one walk at a time. Now apply the same mechanism to the front door. Your dog sprints toward you when you walk in, full body wiggle tail spinning the involuntary dopamine flood of a reuniting attachment pair. In that moment, their entire nervous system is engaged in one activity, welcoming the person their brain has classified as the center of their emotional world. You say not now, you push them down, you walk past. The University of Helsinki's 2020 study, surveying over 13,000 dogs, found that 72% displayed consistent signs of anxiety. The study's authors made a specific note. In many loving households, the primary driver of anxiety was not abuse or neglect in any traditional sense. It was the systematic mismatch between how dogs communicate emotional need and how owners habitually respond to it. Your dog jumping on you is not misbehavior. It is an expression of the strongest emotional bond in their behavioral repertoire, expressed in the only physical language available to them. When that expression is consistently met with rejection, the association calcifies. Eventually, they stop jumping. Owners often celebrate this as they finally calm down. What has actually happened is that your dog has learned that love expressed toward you yields discomfort, so they stop expressing it. Recovering that, getting a dog to reapproach with openness after they have learned that openness is unsafe, takes months of intentional rebuilding. It does not happen on its own. Stay with me, because the next section covers something almost every owner does without a second thought, and the behavioral science behind why it is damaging is more counterintuitive than anything we have covered so far. Of every environmental variable that influences a dog's psychological well-being, predictability ranks near the top. Not just consistency of feeding schedules or walk times, but the deeper predictability of social rules. Knowing what earns safety and what earns threat. Knowing which behaviors are acceptable in which contexts. A dog who lives in a predictable environment is a dog who can relax. A dog who cannot predict what the rules are on any given day cannot afford to relax. And chronic inability to relax produces the same neurological effects as chronic low-grade stress in humans. Elevated baseline cortisol, reduced immune function, increased reactivity, decreased ability to learn. The resource guarding story begins innocuously. Your dog is engaged with a chew. You want their attention. You reach down and remove it. From a human perspective, this is trivial. You own the house. You own the chew. You can give it back in 2 minutes. No harm done. From the dog's perspective, something permanent just happened. An object they were engaged with, something that provided mental stimulation, chewing satisfaction, and the quiet security of having something to work on, was removed from their possession without warning or exchange. The behavioral consequence documented across multiple studies on canine resource behavior is not immediate aggression. It is the quiet installation of a monitoring system. Now the dog begins scanning. When they have something, they watch their surroundings more carefully. They move to corners. They position their body over the object. Resource guarding, which in its mild form is simply a dog becoming tense and still around their possessions, and in its severe form involves growling and snapping, does not come from aggression. It comes from learned unpredictability around valued items. The fix requires nothing except substitution. Offer something of equal or greater value before approaching. Let them make the trade voluntarily. Over time, your approach near their belongings stops predicting loss, and the monitoring system quietly deactivates. But the predictability failure most owners never recognize is more pervasive than resource management. Your puppy jumps on the couch with a sock. It is funny. You let it go. Maybe you take a video. The next day you are exhausted and irritable, and they do the same thing, and you snap at them. From inside your dog's brain here is what that 24-hour window looks like. On day 1, the behavior produced no aversive response. Day 1's rule was, this is acceptable. On day 2, the identical behavior produced sudden hostility. The rule has changed, but no signal preceded the change, and no logical explanation is available. The only variable the dog can identify is you. The conclusion their learning system reaches is not, I was bad. It is, the human is dangerous to predict. And a dog who experiences their owner as dangerous to predict becomes anxious around that owner, not because they are being abused, but because unpredictability in a social environment is inherently threatening to a species that evolved to navigate complex social hierarchies. Consistency is not rigidity. It is not about never having a flexible moment. It is about ensuring that your dog can build an accurate model of how you respond, so that their nervous system never has to stay on high alert, waiting to find out which version of you arrives today. There is a particular kind of damage that comes not from carelessness, but from love expressed in the wrong language. And this section is about exactly that. Hugging is one of the most natural things a human can do. It is how your species communicates comfort, affection, and closeness. It is how you told your parents you loved them, and how you tell your partner the same thing. So when your dog is there warm and soft and looking at you, the impulse to wrap your arms around them is entirely understandable. But dogs do not hug. In the natural communication repertoire of canines, four-leg placement over another animal's body carries a specific meaning. It signals dominance, restraint, or impending conflict. When two dogs interact and one places weight or pressure on the other, from above, the dog receiving that pressure reads it as a status assertion or a threat. This is not learned behavior. It is wired into canine social communication at a level far deeper than training can override. When you wrap your arms around your dog, you are, by the behavioral definition of canine body language, physically restraining them from above. Many dogs tolerate this because they have learned that their owner is not threatening, but tolerance is not enjoyment. And the stress signals are specific, observable, and consistently missed by owners in the moment. Lip licking, yawning outside of a tired context, the body going slightly rigid, the head turning away, whale eye visible, white at the corners of the eye, and a subtle attempt to step or lean backward. These are not random fidgets. They are the behavioral vocabulary of, I am uncomfortable, and I am trying to communicate that as politely as I can. A dog who shows these signals every time you hug them and never receives a change in response eventually stops signaling at all. Not because they have become comfortable, because they have learned that their communication is not received. And a dog who stops communicating discomfort becomes a dog who, in a different high-stress context, skips the signals entirely. Read your dog during the next embrace. Watch the eyes, watch the shoulders, watch whether they lean toward you or hold themselves slightly apart. The dogs who genuinely enjoy close physical contact will show it unmistakably, muscles relaxing, eyes softening, leaning their body weight into yours. The dogs who are tolerating it will show that too if you look. The forced socialization failure follows the same logic. Your dog backs into a corner when guests arrive. They try to make themselves small near the doorway. Every signal they possess is saying, I need distance, I need time, I am not ready. You coax them out, you carry them over. You want people to see how wonderful they are. What you have done in one well-intentioned gesture is confirm the single most damaging lesson anxiety can teach, that their own signals about what they need are irrelevant, that the scary thing they were trying to avoid will be forced on them regardless of what they communicate, that they have no agency over their own emotional experience in their home. Fear conditioning research demonstrates clearly that repeated exposure to threatening stimuli without the ability to avoid them does not desensitize an animal. It produces learned helplessness, a state in which the animal stops attempting to communicate need because experience has taught them it will not change the outcome. Dogs conditioned into learned helplessness around social situations do not become more confident over time. They become more shut down. The absence of anxiety signals in a learned helpless dog is not calm. It is surrender. Let them observe from across the room. Let them approach on their own terms. One calm, dog-initiated encounter with one quiet guest builds more genuine confidence than a year of forced introductions. The last two behaviors on this list are ones most people never consider, and they both involve spaces and moments your dog should feel completely safe in, but often do not. Dogs do not just remember what happened, they remember where it happened and how it felt when it did. Behavioral science terms this place-specific emotional conditioning. Unlike humans who can reason about context and override place-based emotional memories with narrative, dogs' emotional responses to specific environments are strongly tied to the history of sensation and safety they experienced in those places. A space that has consistently felt safe produces calm. A space associated with threat produces a defensive response upon entry, regardless of how that space appears to the objective eye. The crate is designed to be the safest space in your dog's world. A den analogy, the one physical location in your home that belongs to them unconditionally, where nothing demands anything of them, where no emotional variability reaches them, where they can rest without monitoring. The moment you send them to the crate out of frustration, not because they need to rest, not because guests are present, but because you are irritated and you want them out of your space, you have introduced a new emotional association into that environment. Crate equals the moment the human became hostile. Crate equals the prelude to something unpleasant. This does not require a dramatic incident to take effect. Dogs are extraordinary environmental pattern learners. It takes very few repetitions of crate equals owner's frustration state before the crate begins to generate an anticipatory anxiety response on its own. You will see it in the hesitation at the door, the body that stiffens before they cross the threshold, the quick scan backward at you before going in. These are not stubbornness. They're a dog running a predictive safety check on a space that their experience tells them is not unconditionally safe anymore. The repair requires deliberate positive reclamation. Feed meals in the crate. Hide treats inside with no other instruction. Sit next to it quietly while they choose to explore it. Give the crate back to them as something they own, not something you operate. The sleep startle is the final, most frequently underestimated item on this list. Your dog is curled on the sofa. They are in deep sleep, the slow respiratory rate, the occasional twitch, the complete muscular surrender of REM. They look impossibly peaceful and impossibly soft. You reach over and lay a hand on them. What happens next in a fraction of a second is not in their control. During deep sleep, the dog's protective reflexes do not fully deactivate. They are suppressed below the threshold of waking awareness, but not eliminated. A sudden tactile stimulus to a deeply sleeping dog triggers an autonomic startle sequence before the dog has any opportunity to identify the source. For a split second, they are awake, disoriented, and experiencing a threat response without a threat target. For most dogs with stable attachment histories and low baseline anxiety, this resolves within seconds and causes no lasting change. But for former strays, shelter dogs, dogs who spent early life in kennel environments with limited human contact, or dogs with any history of sleep-related disturbance, the startle reflex can be severe enough to trigger a bite. Not out of aggression, out of involuntary physiological response to a perceived threat during neurological vulnerability. A single incident of this kind can alter the relationship dynamic for months. Not because the dog turned aggressive, because the dog's nervous system now carries a specific memory of danger associated with your approach during rest, and memories like that require extensive, patient, intentional work to overwrite. If they are sleeping, let them wake on their own. Say their name softly from across the room. Give their nervous system the chance to surface before you make physical contact. To my person,
I have been writing this in my head for some time, and I think I owe you an apology.
I am sorry for knocking over the garbage can. I was not trying to make you angry. I had been alone for 6 hours, and there was a smell I needed to investigate. I should have been better. I know it was wrong. I understand now, because you made it very clear in that moment. I am sorry for the sign. On Tuesday you laughed, so I thought it was allowed. I should have known better. On Wednesday, the rules were different. I am working on understanding the system. I am sorry for coming to the door when you arrived home from work. I know you were tired. I know the day was difficult. I could smell it on you before the lock turned. I was trying to help in the only way I know how. I will try to be quieter next time. I am sorry for sleeping on the couch that one afternoon while you were gone. I put my head on the spot where you usually sit. I was not trying to claim anything.
I just needed to be near whatever was left of you, in a room that had been empty for hours.
I am sorry I growled at the stranger who reached for my food. I know that was wrong. I did not know if it was going to come back. Things I love sometimes disappear. and I have not figured out the pattern yet. I am working on it. I am sorry for staring at you across the room when you were watching something on the screen.
I know it was probably distracting. I was not asking for anything. I was just studying the thing I love most in this house.
Old habit. I have been thinking about this apology for a long time, and I want you to know that I do not write any of it from anger.
I do not have anger.
I write it because somewhere in the middle of all of it I started to wonder if you had known all of this before we started, would anything have been different? I think you would have wanted it to be. Every behavior on this list is fixable, not with training programs or expensive tools, with specific small adjustments that take less time than the damage did. Raise your voice less. Speak at the same volume you would use to tell someone you trust something quiet and true. Correct in the moment or not at all. If 30 seconds have passed, put the frustration down and start fresh. Put the phone away for the walk, not the whole walk. 10 minutes, just 10 minutes of being where your dog is. When they come to the door, meet the 2 minutes. Get on their level. Let the groceries wait. Trade before you take. Offer something. Make the exchange their choice. Pick one rule per behavior and hold it regardless of your mood. Pay attention during the hug. Watch the eyes, the shoulders, the lean. Let what you see change what you do. Let them retreat. Let them choose when to engage. That choice, freely made, is the beginning of real confidence. Keep the crate unconditionally theirs. Go in there, leave treats, sit beside it, and say nothing. Give it back to them slowly. Say their name softly before you touch them in sleep. Let their brain surface before your hand does. None of these are grand gestures. None require a perfect day or a perfect version of you. Your dog does not need perfection. They never did. They need the signal that the person they love is paying attention. Start with one. Start tonight. They are already watching. If you want to keep understanding your dog at this level, subscribe to Correct Relaxation. We go deeper every single week. This is Correct Relaxation. We will see you next week.